The sound shattered the elegant hush like a slap crystal, glasses clinking lightly, forks pausing mid-air, candlelight flickering on bottles of deep red wine. Lena Hartwell froze her gaze, locking onto her mother's eyes. Meredith's tilted with refined disdain laced with venom. "You must be joking!" Meredith continued, her voice thin and icy, each word deliberate. "You're not bringing a janitor to a gathering of lawyers." Across the table, Chauncey Morgan sat upright. No raised voice, no flare of anger. He simply folded his napkin neatly and placed it on his lap as if no one could touch the quiet fire burning in his chest. "I'm not here to prove anything," Chauncey said evenly, his eyes meeting Douglas Hartwell's, Lena's father, who gripped his wine glass like he might crush it. "I'm here because she invited me." The silence in the dining room wasn't peaceful. It was the thin ice before a crack. A small voice from the left broke it. "The janitor knows how to talk." A cousin in a red satin dress giggled. An uncle muttered, "Ivy League girls slumming it now." Lena squeezed Chauncey's hand under the table. That hand had held hers on a rain-soaked bus after her first lost case, a minor slip that haunted her. That same hand had slipped her a sandwich in the cold night when she felt the world turning away. Now that hand was deemed unworthy. Douglas set his glass down slowly, then looked at his daughter. "You have two choices, Lena. Leave him, or leave us." Her heart splintered not from the choice, but because it had been made long ago. Lena stood. No words, no tears, no dramatic outburst like in the movies. She pushed her chair back, gently slipped on her coat, and turned to Chauncey. "Let's go." The New York night was cold enough to turn breath to fog on their lips. They walked through Manhattan's glowing streets like a stage play unfolding, then down to the parking lot behind the restaurant. Chauncey's old Chevy Malibu sat quietly amid the frost-covered cars. When he opened the door, the hinge creaked sharply. "Sorry," he murmured, eyes on the steering wheel. "I know. It doesn't match your dress." Lena slid into the seat, closed the door, and turned to him. "It matches me better than any Park Avenue mansion." They drove to their rented apartment in Newark on the third floor of an old building facing a bus stop. No chandeliers, no fine wine. Just a dangling yellow bulb, a peeling leather armchair, and a heater humming noisily through the night. On the kitchen table sat 2 packs of cheap pasta, a blackened iron pot, and steam rising like a simple welcome from real life. "No dessert," Chauncey said, pouring her a glass of cold tap water. "That's fine. I'm full from my mother's words." She laughed the first in weeks. It wasn't from joy, but from finally being herself. After dinner, they sat on the floor backs against the wall, listening to jazz from an old radio. Outside, car horns blared, arguments echoed, dogs barked, all blending into a symphony of unfiltered life. "Do you regret it?" Lena asked. "Choosing me, stepping out of your world?" Chauncey looked at her. No anger, no pride in his eyes. Just a silence, steady and almost sacred. "On the contrary, I think you're finally living for yourself." And that night, as Lena wrote in her notebook under the desk lamp, she penned one line. "Blood isn't measured by titles, only love measures. Who stays when the lights go out." Newark's winter bit deep, turning drips from rooftops into ice the moment they hit the ground. Lena navigated the cracked sidewalks each morning, briefcase in hand, stepping around huddled figures under awnings, people without homes in a city that barely noticed them. Her office on Ferry Street was a 3-story relic walls, peeling heater, whining like a dying animal. No red carpets anymore, no pre-brewed coffee. But every time she entered a district courtroom staring down those trying to strip rights from the vulnerable, she felt like a real lawyer. Chauncey still pulled night shifts at East Side Public High School. The job hadn't changed, mopping floors, vacuuming dust, replacing burnt bulbs, but he had in small ways. Each night, he returned with the scent of cleaning chemicals clinging to his skin, hands chilled, but always extending a cup of chocolate milk or a 99-cent croissant, like a reminder that no matter how dirty the world got, their love stayed clean. Until one night close to 2 a.m., the phone rang. Chauncey stared at the screen, unmoving. When he answered, Lena sat up, a premonition tightening her chest. My grandfather's gone, Chauncey whispered, and he left a house and a will. Oh. They hit the road to Montgomery, Alabama, in a borrowed Toyota Corolla, cutting through fog-shrouded states' headlights, stretching like unanswered questions. Along the way, Chauncey spoke of his grandfather, a black veteran who'd worked cotton fields, then scraped together enough to buy back land from his former owner's heirs. He taught me everything, fixing cars, welding metal plumbing pipes. But the real lesson, don't let the world say your hands are just for mopping. Your hands are for rebuilding your own house. The wooden house crouched amid waist-high weeds, 3 acres silent, as if holding its breath for half a century. The roof sagged, doors splintered, windows rattled by wind. But in the dusty bedroom, they found a tin box hidden under the bed frame. Inside, a hand-drawn map of the land, a deed of ownership, a handwritten letter from 1952, and a geological survey scribbled with subsurface layer contains monazite rare earth mineral. Chauncey went still. Lena's hands trembled on the paper. Do you know what this is? It's not just property. It's recognition, buried truth. The next morning, they sought a local lawyer in town. The man pored over the documents for nearly 2 hours, flipping pages like handling forgotten artifacts. You're the sole legal heir, he said. If these hold up, you don't just own dirt. You hold a piece of American history. They kept the discovery quiet. Lena knew too well America didn't let black men hold on to resources without a fight, especially not ones unearthed from forgotten soil. The independent geological report arrived sealed in a plain envelope, its pages confirming what the old survey hinted. The land held high concentrations of rare earth minerals, monazite, thorium, cerium, vital for defense tech and computer chips. Potential value soared into millions, but so did the risks. 3 days later, the first offer came. A representative from Belcore Minerals, a multinational firm notorious for snapping up land from poor communities, met them at a roadside diner off the highway. The air smelled of stale coffee and fried grease booths sticky under their elbows. $120,000, the man said, sliding a black briefcase across the table. Wired within 48 hours. A fine sum for unused dirt. Chauncey stayed silent, his dark eyes fixed on the man's tie knotted too perfectly. Lena leaned forward. Your company ignored surveys on this land for 50 years. Suddenly interested now. The rep shrugged a practiced smile. History sometimes needs rewriting by those equipped to handle it. Lena stood. We are equipped, but we choose not to rewrite history. We let it be seen plain. As they left wind whipping through the diner's lot, Chauncey squeezed her hand. They're not done. He was right. The subpoena arrived 3 days later, delivered by a courier who avoided eye contact. Not from Belcore alone, from Lena's family, too. Douglas and Meredith had allied with the corporation petitioning to invalidate the will, claiming Chauncey's grandfather lacked mental capacity when signing. "We're not suing a black man," the attached lawyer's note read. "We're contesting an invalid document." But Lena saw through it. They targeted the color of Chauncey's skin, the humility of his roots. Belcour wanted the minerals cheap. Her parents wanted to erase her choice to pull her back into their world of white shingled estates and boardroom deals. She dove into preparation like a lifeline. Days blurred in the dim light of public libraries and courthouse archives. She tracked down the elderly doctor who treated Chauncey's grandfather in his final years. Over a crackling phone line, the man affirmed he remembered every timeline, every acre, every storm-bent tree from '69. She pieced together transfer records, proving the grandfather had been forced to sell portions cheaply under Jim Crow pressures, then spent decades laboring to reclaim it, blood, sweat, and buried pride. Through it all, Chauncey remained quiet, his presence a steady anchor. He'd sit on the porch of the old house at dusk, wind carrying the scent of damp earth eyes, distant but resolute. "This isn't just land," he'd say softly. "It's what they tried to bury us under." Lena felt the weight of it, the racism woven into deeds and denials, the way power circled like vultures. But in his gaze, she saw determination to protect what his ancestors had clawed back. The subpoena marked the war's start, thrusting them into a battle bigger than wills or wealth won for truth against those who'd rewrite it. Lena prepared meticulously, her days a blur of yellowed files and late-night calls. She located the aging doctor who'd cared for Chauncey's grandfather, his voice steady over the line. He knew every detail, timelines, acres, the storm that bent those trees in '69. She dug through county records, unearthing deeds that showed forced sales at rock-bottom prices under the shadow of segregation, followed by decades of toil to reclaim what was stolen. Each page fueled her resolve, a testament to endurance against erasure. Facing her parents in court felt like stepping into a fractured mirror. Douglas and Meredith sat rigidly beside Belcour's lawyers, their expressions a mask of entitlement. The courtroom in Montgomery smelled of polished wood and stale air sunlight, slanting through high windows onto the worn benches. Chauncey sat beside Lena, his presence quiet but unyielding dark skin, a stark contrast to the pale faces dominating the room. The opposing lawyer opened with polished disdain. "We're not challenging a man, we're questioning a flawed document from an unstable mind." His eyes flicked to Chauncey with subtle contempt, as if his very existence invalidated the claim. Douglas avoided Lena's gaze. Meredith's lips thinned, her stare cold and accusatory. Lena rose when her turn came, breath steady despite the knot in her chest. "My family taught me to draft laws," she said, voice clear and unwavering. "But this man, Chauncey Morgan, taught me to honor them." She gestured to her parents, then to the judge. "Don't let power rewrite history. Protect the memories of those who've been buried under it." She laid out the evidence, the doctor's affidavit affirming mental clarity, the chain of deeds exposing racist coercion, the grandfather's lifelong fight to repurchase his dignity. The lawyer opposite scoffed, probing with questions laced in condescension. "And how does a janitor inherit such significance?" Chauncey didn't flinch. His steady gaze spoke volumes, a symbol of resilience in a room built on exclusion. Meredith's eyes narrowed during Lena's closing, a flicker of betrayal crossing her face. Douglas shifted uncomfortably, fingers drumming the table. The air grew thick murmurs, rippling through the sparse gallery locals who'd heard whispers of the case drawn by the undercurrent of old injustices resurfacing. The judge deliberated briefly, then struck the gavel with finality. "The will is valid. The land legally belongs to Chauncey Morgan. All claims by the plaintiffs are dismissed. Relief washed over Lena like a cool wave, but no triumph lit her face. She turned to Chauncey, their hands clasping briefly amid the shuffling papers and rising voices. Belcour's rep gathered his briefcase, hastily avoiding eye contact. Her parents stood frozen, the weight of defeat, etching lines deeper into their features. Outside the courthouse, under Alabama's heavy sky, Lena and Chauncey walked in silence at first. The victory's gravity settled, not just ownership secured, but a piece of history affirmed. Chauncey's hand in hers felt warmer, their bond forged stronger in the fire of scrutiny. 2 years later, a new sign rose on the land, Morgan Rare Earths, Est by Family Legacy. Chauncey and Lena refused outright sales to conglomerates, opting instead for federal partnerships on the condition that profits funded scholarships and land rights funds for communities of color. The company stayed small, focused not on empire building, but on ethical extraction, honoring the soil's history rather than stripping it bare. Chauncey didn't trade in his Chevy. The rusty hinges still creaked, the engine humming reliably through Alabama's back roads. His office remained the refurbished wooden house, a single rusted nail on the wall where his grandfather once hung a straw hat, a reminder amid polished desks and humming computers. They had a son now, Micah, with curious eyes and Chauncey's steady hands. Evenings found Chauncey on the porch, Micah in his lap, the boy's small fingers tracing patterns in the dust. "You know why this dirt's special?" Chauncey asked one night, voice low under the stars. Micah shook his head. "It's not just minerals. It's blood. It's truth. And folks who dared hold on to it when everything pushed to bury them." Lena joined them, leaning against Chauncey's shoulder, the air carrying the faint scent of turned earth from the day's work. One afternoon, a cream envelope arrived, scripted in her mother's hand. Lena opened it alone, words blurring at first. "You've built a world I never dared imagine, not because you're stubborn, but because you're braver than anyone in this line." She folded it away, a quiet bridge over old rifts. Under a full moon, the family sat on the steps, Micah asleep against Chauncey's chest. The land stretched dark and vast, whispers of wind through the grass like echoes of the past. "We didn't chase gold," Lena murmured. "We just unearthed truth." Chauncey tightened his arm around her and turned it into legacy.